Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast, aka the Pup List. We are a Green Bay Packers fan podcast that brings you topical and relevant Packers news, along with our most humble, subjective opinions. This is episode 307. We're recording this on a Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. The NFL new league started today, along with free agency, and the free agency legal tampering period started 2 days ago. We'll be discussing who the Packers have signed, who they've let go, and other impactful moves around the league. Just a reminder out there for all our podcast listeners, this is a video episode, so go over to our YouTube channel and check us out there. I'm your host, Tay, and joining me on video tonight, forever is...
Ren, what up, Tay? Happy day one of the new league year 2025. We're finally here, but we were here 2 days ago. Not quite the signings we maybe experienced 1 year ago with the kind of quizzical we thought at the time. Josh Jacobs, why is this happening? Well, the Aaron Jones talks broke down, but later we are blown away by the Xavier McKinney Professor X signing, who ended up being an All-Pro. So Brian hit it out of the ballpark last year with regard to the start of free agency and the legal tampering period. And this year, I think it's a little bit more ho-hum, certainly speaks to some more talking points. I don't think you, and I don't want to speak for you, Tay, but maybe you're like me, who certainly wasn't over the moon by either signing. I see the value to a point in each guy that was brought in for the Packers, but when you look around the NFC North with the north wind blows, I saw a lot of these other teams that we're competing with also do similar things and also got better. And the Packers just kind of, did some okay things, but I don't think they really raised the bar and did anything where you go, hey, this is a team that went 1-5 in the division last year, say, and suddenly they're in a much better position, 2 days into the start of the legal tampering period and now the new league year. So, how are you immediately feeling? I mean, we'll talk about the North, Tay, but I think it's most important to talk about, exactly, what our feelings are, what your feelings are, with what the Packers did and, ultimately didn't do with the start of the legal tampering period. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not feeling bad. I don't think we I necessarily are doing, Brian's doing a bad job. I think this is par for the course for the Packers. I think last year was a bit of a enigma anomaly. Well, not enigma. I mean, we know what's going on. We need to sign free agents that are good and going to help out the team. But compared to last year, I think maybe some people in context to last year are disappointed this year. But literally, like I don't think it was maybe as a robust free agency pool as it was last year. I think we were excited because of what we did last year, that something's gonna happen this year. All you need is 2 free agents to go to the Pro Bowl every year, and you're golden. Like it's like the standard now. It's like the bar set. Way to go, Brian! And now everyone's holding you to that expectation. That's kind of like what I feel is happening this year. So just forget about last year. Let's look at this year. A lot of the big names that were talked about for weeks leading up to this were gone. So you got Davante Adams, gone. He went to the LA Rams. You got Myles Garrett, who re-signed with his own team. DK Metcalf was traded from the Seahawks to the Steelers. Those were the big ones that we wanted. I bet you most fans of their teams wanted those players. So you get yourself worked up, and then when that doesn't happen, it's like, and then you're like, come on, Brian, do something. And then when he does, gets you offensive lineman, you're like, oh. So it's like, but really, I like that pick. When it was obvious that they were going to move on from Josh Myers, so you needed something in free agency to help with that. Yes, Brian does a great job at offensive line drafting, so leave him do that this year again, bolster that. But this just helps us out maintaining, to the next season. And with the CB signing here with Dobbs. I'm gonna probably mess that up.
Nate Hobbs.
Nate
There you go.
Hobbs,
Yep.
cornerback. That's another position we need help at. So I love this. He's seems to be a great player that it's kind of like that Zadarius Smith of years past, where it's like, yeah, he's an upcomer. He's got a lot left in the tank, and this is a position we need help with. So I love that. So the two signings we did make were awesome, and we'll come back to that and go through a little more. But I liked the additions that we made. There wasn't a lot of top tier popular people left. There are still some good players that aren't signed yet, but this was kind of it for us, I think, now. And yeah, you might see a few things here and there, but these were the two that I think we went out and got, for better or for worse. But I think it's fine. Obviously, it's too soon to tell, but it's not super flashy. Maybe as flashy as we wanted. We wanted an edge rusher, right? I mean, we all did, but and it still could happen, and we'll talk about that in a minute, like who's left or who we want, Packer Universe wants. But in the end, Ren, I'm cool with this. I think this is going to work out. I think these are Packer people, and now you look forward to the draft and using that as a tool to hopefully get us through. I mean, we left the playoffs last year thinking, well, we weren't ready for the playoffs, right? We lost in the first round. But is this going to do it? I don't know. It's hard to say yes to that without seeing the draft and all that stuff. And we really wanted a wide receiver, number one, and that didn't happen right away in free agency either. So,
or at least a really good veteran, guy that can help bring the room along that is worthwhile, or the bucket getter or the fast guy down the sidelines. And unfortunately, there weren't a lot to pick from to start. And the two that obviously Packer Universe liked came off right away. I was never a big DK guy. DK, I think, is super talented, but he brings a lot of baggage. He's literally the most flagged wide receiver in the NFL because he plays with a lot of emotion. He's a physical, receiver. I don't know how that's going to work out in Pittsburgh with Pickens over there, who is also a temperamental personality at the wide receiver position. They seem to like temperamental guys at that position in Pittsburgh. We'll see what happens. At the moment, they do not have a single quarterback on the roster in Pittsburgh. So, they've got some work.
Russell's not signed.
They've got some work to do there. I mean, they don't have a backup. They don't have a backup to the backup. They've literally got nothing in Pittsburgh at the moment as they await the decision of one Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could talk about it as things kind of come up, but the Steelers, Justin Fields goes to the Jets, and you're like, would you pick Justin Fields over Aaron Rodgers? I don't know if you ever make that call, but they're looking at young upside still for Fields, not paying as much, low drama. Maybe they just want to like us, like pack it in a bag and get it out of town. But and then it's like the Steelers are front runners or something for Rodgers to land in, and then we'll talk about it in a minute. But so are the Vikings. But yeah, if you're quarterbackless, like, how does that even feel, Ren? Have you? I mean, that doesn't cross your mind ever in Packers history as being a fan that you're like, wait, we don't have any quarterback on the roster? Weird. That's so weird.
I think pre-Magic Man, when they're dealing with the Anthony Dilwigs of the world, they maybe lived in that realm when we were a little too young. We were, 10, 11 years old to really understand what that was. And obviously the league was a much different iteration than it is today. But I would say back then, in the, mid into the later 80s before the Magic Man showed up on the roster, they didn't have much, if anything, at the quarterback position. Not to digress here, as we're talking about the 2025 start of the new league year today. The Fields thing is interesting. Apparently the Steelers were in on him, but didn't want to give him enough guaranteed money. And he got $30 million guaranteed from the New York Jets. So, of course, you're going to take that contract. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
He gets to go, you know, team up with his battery mate Garrett Wilson, who he played with in college, and now his center in college, Josh Myers, joins him out with the New York Jets. So on a pretty small contract at who would have thought Josh Myers gets a $3.5 million 1 year deal today? Incredible low dollars. I mean, that's almost unheard of.
Yeah,
The
it
Packers are
is.
paying a kicker more than that, and you start to wonder, would it have been better saving the Aaron Banks money and sticking with what you got and figuring down the line?
Hey, you
I
said it.
mean,
You said it. I agree. Like I'm like looking at that, thinking, scratching my head. Why would you do this? You obviously wanted to move on from Josh for more reasons than we know about. Why would you do that? You could have done both. I mean, you're really gonna, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where this information's coming from that Elton Jenkins is going to move to center. I don't think that's official. That people are just assuming that.
it's
But
going to happen, Tay. I mean, it's
it will.
not a question of if, but it will happen. Elton's going to go to center. He played center in college. He's an accomplished center.
Yeah,
Will he be a Hall of Fame center? Like Rob Domofsky said, if Zach Tom moved over
to
to the
center.
center
Yeah,
position, um, not necessarily, but I think you certainly upgraded the center position with Elton there, and you
that's debatable.
probably upgraded guard. But I've heard others like Mike Wall talk about today. Why would you take a guard that's really really great and place him with another guard who's not as good?
Right.
It's questionable. Give a $77 million contract, and it is the going rate. Say, I mean, when you saw the offensive line market, work itself over the last 2 days, that's what you're paying. You're paying 15 to $22 million for a starting guard in the NFL, and essentially the Green Bay Packers paid 18 million or thereabouts when you look at it on average for, you know, Aaron Banks, and they feel this guy who is the 77th overall rated offensive lineman in the NFL per PFF, um, that they feel this guy will bolster their offensive line from a starting standpoint. And when you talk about guys like Jordan Morgan, we're not even talking about Jordan Morgan as a guy on that line yet.
Yeah.
It's not even including him. So they have ideas of what this line might look like. Potentially, hopefully give Morgan enough time where he can go back to tackle, and maybe they don't want to pay Rasheed in a year. I think Rasheed Walker is a heck of a left tackle. I think he's done amazing work in pass pro at that left tackle position. It's hard to do. And you got him in the 7th round. If they don't sign him to extension a year, I'm going to be disappointed, to be honest, Tay, that they're going to say, oh, Jordan Morgan's the guy there now. I mean, it just, at the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
the bank signing and all of it with the line, honestly, Brian's hit it out of the ballpark in free agency. He really has. I mean, you go back to looking at Billy Turner. He came in and he played his best football of his career when he was a Green Bay Packer. It was a great signing. Zadarius Smith, he came up. He was a question mark. They took a flyer, and he turned out to be an All-Pro in Green Bay. You look at the best years of Adrian Amos. We're in Green Bay, not in Chicago. Preston Smith, best years in Green Bay. Brian, and that's just touching. I mean, look at the two guys last year. We just talked about them to open the show, and that's obviously Josh and Xavier, and hit it out of the ballpark. So I'm not going to question Brian's, the ability to look at guys who are already in the NFL and what they might bring to your team. He certainly, his track record, for the most part, he hits it, and he does well. Even with guys like Rasul Douglas, pulling him off a practice squad from the Cardinals, or bringing a guy off the shelf in May of that offseason when they brought in Devondre Campbell, and he's an All-Pro. Brian generally has done this right and been able to find the guys. But this one, for a guy, he gave up 1 sack in all of last year. But when you start to talk about his pass protection piece, it's not great. He does allow a lot of hurries, and sacks aren't the thing. It's about the QB pressures, right? He's more of a he's better um, in run than pass pro, and certainly they want that. They had issues against the Eagles when they had an issue with Elton Jenkins, and they had to mix guys around. They couldn't run the football anymore, and they were at a disadvantage. And I think they want to get a little bit more physical. They've been a lighter line throughout the years, more finesse with pass protection, less, as some people call Aaron Banks, that road grader kind of guy, that big body, 325, 6'5", 325, just a massive mountain of a man. And yeah, he's athletic too for the size. He can get out and block downfield. You love to see it. There's some good tape on him, but there's also a lot of questionable tape on him that I'm going to play it as more of a wait and see. I don't know how much better the line got with him being inserted and Elton flipping over. I think it's better. Josh has been, let's be honest, I know you're a Josh Myers stan, but Josh was one of the worst tackles in the NFL, and he wasn't getting much better. That's why he got $3.5 million to go to the New York Jets today, because he was not a great center.
I guess I disagree with not a great center evaluation. I think he was average or just above average. I mean, that's really all I can ask for. I mean, when do you ever hear his name? When do you ever hear him being an issue? And I guess I just question, why would you get rid of someone when you could have just paid him $3 or $3.5 million for one more year, and take Elton away from the left guard situation? He's your Swiss Army knife. So is Tom. Why don't you keep that? I mean, I know you're basically signing Aaron Banks to be your left guard, and that's it. Like, you just plug and play. And I think you had that with Josh Myers as center, and then mess around with the guards and have him as backup if something happened, because it did. Like Elton came in there and played center. If the five we have now that are kind of set, one of them goes down, what are you gonna do? I feel like we're in trouble if we don't really kind of hash out who's in line behind these guys. But it just I don't know. I mean, you're right. Brian has hit more than he's missed on bringing in free agents and then being able to let them go. I mean, he's really has a great track record. So it's hard to say, no, Brian, you did wrong here. But when the Jets only gave him one year deal for 3.5, it's like something's going on. I think it's not a disruption of the offensive line the way it was, but it's definitely something different now. And again, like I said before, we haven't seen Matt LaFleur say Elton is the center. And until that happens, it's like, okay, or you see it in practice, we won't know for sure. What if they draft one? I don't know. What if Tom does get his chance and they draft a tackle, or something happens? So there's still opportunities for things to change on the offensive line, but this one just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why they didn't do it, or why they did do it this way. But I'm still happy that Aaron Banks is here. It's a good, solid decision to me. I like it. Obviously, they did it to play him, to start him at left guard, and
that's where he will be.
Yeah. Yes, and that's at least that's solidified. We'll see. Hopefully he keeps the job, right? If he doesn't, then it's a bust. But I don't know. It's strange, but they're choosing to go this route versus keep Myers, keep Elton at left guard, and then keep the offensive line intact the rest of the way. So I don't know. They must have a master plan, right?
Well, and I think some of that master plan, piggybacking off of that, is simply they don't want to be that finesse team. They want to be a run first football team to set up the pass. Yeah. That is definitely the blueprint. This smells and is that. That's what it is. Again, did it improve from that standpoint? It certainly did. Zach Tom is too good at right tackle. He's not going anywhere from that position. He will not be moved. He's an all-pro essentially at right tackle now, Tay, and he's going to get paid in the next 18 months. The Packers are going to extend him, and he's going to get a boatload of money. They pay those guys second contracts in Green Bay, and he's absolutely going to get it. I still think Rashid is the question mark there. I think he's earned it and then some. Again, left tackles, man, it's hard to find. That's your quarterback's blind side. I really like what Sheed's done, and I hope they don't screw that one up and think that Jordan Morgan can be inserted there in a year.
And Jordan Morgan is kind of like the unknown. We don't know how he'll fit exactly. I mean, we're supposed to think he's supposed to be left tackle, right? Um, but I don't know. But they could move him around, like he's played other positions in college. But the money thing, it's like, okay, so you're gonna have to pay Tom, you're gonna have to pay Walker if you want them to stay. Um, so what? Why don't you take that savings now with Myers and keep him around a little bit? I guess, and versus giving a big contract to the left guard when you're like, did we need that? So
I,
that's
I
my
agree, Tay. I think the the capital they had could have been used better. And when you see that deal today go down for Josh Myers, personally, I'd rather pay him 3.5, go back to battle this year with the same guys you had. Get some more depth, build it through the draft. They've been very successful in those middle rounds with, but it takes time with drafting offensive linemen. But those don't hit every year. I mean, sure, we look at the Josh Sittons of the world, and we look at the Rasheed Walkers and the Toms, and they work out in the Elton Jenkins. But the point is, it's not like you get a couple of those every year. So they're again, they want to make sure that they can block up front, the running game can lead and open up that passing game on second and third down. That's what they really want. They want to take those big shots on second and third down and move the football, and we'll see what happens. But again, back to your point, is I would roll with the smaller contract and keep a very average to still below average center. Tay, you may disagree, but Spot Track and PFF will tell you
yeah,
not
I
so
know.
not so great when it comes to Josh Myers. But when you look at contracts where Chase Young stays for three years, 52 in New Orleans, and you look at another guy like Josh Sweat going from the Eagles to the Cardinals, getting 4 years, essentially the same deal, 77. I really feel those dollars would have been better allocated to somebody like that. And it was Brian's words, in the offseason that they need four to affect the quarterback. Those were his words. That's what he talked
Yep,
about.
with
You
4.
know, got to affect the quarterback with four. And, the Packers need influx of guys there. And, when it comes to edge rushers, they just don't come in from the draft and do that. He's speaking up, the talent of one Lucas Van Ness, ready to finally, hopefully, break out year three, Tay.
Yeah, 3.
Um, when you can go get an accomplished guy, Chase Young's still young, Josh Sweat's young, and they would have really, really helped out that room. And I think that would have been the much smarter play. Now, do those guys want to listen to Green Bay? They pick up the phone call and they're like, "No, we don't want to deal with you. We're not going there." I mean, that's always a possibility, but the reality is, you know, hey, money talks. Look at Myles Garrett. Yeah, I'm never playing for you again, and suddenly I'm the highest paid non-quarterback in the
Mm-hmm.
NFL. You know, and guess what? Myles Garrett in the rest of his career is probably never going to sniff anything close to even getting to a championship game in the AFC conference. Nevertheless, playoff games. Tay,
But
he's going to be
he
the
got
Joe
paid.
Thomas. He's going to
Yep.
be the
Yeah,
Joe Thomas
exactly.
on defense for the Browns. He'll go to the Hall of Fame. Really? You could have went somewhere and had 35 per a year. Who cares? Go chase what you really wanted. I don't understand that stuff sometimes because you look at a guy like Chris Godwin. He was offered some massive money. It sounds like by New England. He said, I got a good thing here in Tampa, and I took less, and that's where I'm comfortable. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But these guys have choices, and sometimes it leaves you with a lot of questions, and sometimes these GMs have choices, and also leaves you with a lot of questions.
Well, the other signing that we did was on the defensive side of the ball, cornerback Mr. Nate Hobbs. From all looks at this, Ren, this was a great one. It bolstered a need for us because obviously the Jair thing is up in the air still. We just learned, I think it was today, that Eric Stokes went to the Raiders, so he's gone. And it was a position of need, and I love this. It's a $48 million deal. Last year he had 49 tackles, 1 interception in 11 games. He did miss some with an injury and like an illness for a couple other ones or one. But he stands at 6 foot and he's 196 pounds. kind of got long arms too. So Nate Hobbs, I think it will be a great addition. He's young, and it's not too bad of a deal, I think, money wise, especially when I don't know if you're gonna make up some when you get rid of Jair or cut him. You probably will. So I guess give me your thoughts on Nate Hobbs, and then also I'd like to piggyback off that and ask you about Jair. What do you think is going to happen to him?
Nate Hobbs is a very interesting talent there, Tay. I mean, I think it was Tajim Warren, former NFL player / Packer honk. He's got his own podcast. I liked the tape he put out on Hobbs. He's a very aggressive tackler in the open field, i.e., not what 23 does or has done. Not afraid to tackle, not afraid to flow up. A lot of just headstrong energy, run to the play and wrap up. And you got to love the hunger. Still only 25 years old. A little bit of an injury history there. Kind of a similar type to Paulson Adebo. Paulson got paid. Here's a guy you can get on a much lower contract. Yeah, it was a 4-year, $48 million deal, Tay. We talked off the mic at the RAS score. We know the Packers love that relative athletic score, i.e. the RAS score, a 9.61. 61, yep. So, hits all those Packer people markers when it comes to that. You got a $16 million signing bonus. His contract on the books in 2025 is $5.98 million, so it's not much. But the interesting part between the Banks and the Hobbs piece, Tay, is the contracts are exactly Packer contracts. They're 4-year deals. In fact, as of yesterday, day 2 of the legal tampering period, there are only 10 contracts of all those contracts you heard about that couldn't be signed till today that were 4 years or more. And I believe there were none longer than 4 years. And of those 10 players that got contracts for at least 4 years, of all those signings, 2 of them were Green Bay Packer contracts. Now, essentially the way the Packers front load contracts is classic Packers. We've got our guy with his pencil being sharpened, Rust Ball, doing the classic thing, giving all the money up front and signing bonuses. And then essentially it's a year-to-year contract. So either of these guys, Tay, can be gone as of the 2026 season, especially when you look at Aaron Banks, $77 million 4 years, $27 million guaranteed. He hits the books at $9.15 million in year 1, but he is owed a $9.5 million roster bonus on the 3rd day of the 2026 season, in the same in 2027 at $9.5 million. So they're going to have a choice to make. Either he worked out, and you're going to carry that $9.5 million to keep him on the roster with that bonus into the new league year next year, or you're going to say, nope, it didn't, and you free up that money. So that's where the Packers are really smart with these contracts. It's no different with Nate Hobbs. Basically, because he got all that money, essentially that $48 million, that $16 million signing bonus, if they don't like it, they can move on next year right away. So these are really 4-year contracts, but they are really 1 year, year-to-year deals that the Packers can reevaluate and decide what they want to do with said player.
Yeah, I think it's smart. I love it.
Yep.
It's
good.
How you should do
it's classic Packer business when it comes to contracts. Yep. It is. They do this almost time and time again.
And I love the roster bonus, because then you got to play to stay, and if they're on the team next year, great. That probably there's a reason for that. Go ahead.
Banks, actual roster set salary. I mean, this year he's 9.15, but in year 2 he's already 24.8. Year 3, 22.25, and by year 4 it shrinks slightly to 20.75. So, they're going to either kick that can, or they're going to say, yeah, you're literally down the road and we're going to cut you. So both of them are prove-it deals, and you love that guys know, like, hey, they paid me, but I got to still go out and earn it. So there's a lot of carrot out there for both those players. They both have I think a lot of good upside when it comes to their overall play. And the Packers generally on the offensive line get that out of guys. Cornerbacks, well, we know how it's gone in Green Bay. So it's always been they've been wasting a lot of high draft capital on cornerbacks for years and years and years that we can remember from, Josh Jacksons of the world to, who are some of these guys that they drafted as safeties and then played at cornerbacks? I can't remember the right names, but they've been Eric Stokes, unfortunately, riddled with injury, Jair being unavailable. They spent a lot of capital and just doesn't work out with that position in Green Bay.
Yeah, think about last year too. You sign Xavier McKinney, and then you go into the draft going, we don't have too much to lose here. Let's try to go get some guys that we love, and they did. 2 guys, Bullard and Williams, love it. So maybe they could do that this year with the cornerback room. Okay, we got 2 starters, so let's just have fun. Let's get the guys we want and go for it. And hopefully it turns out. But I think both those moves, the offensive lineman Banks and Hobbs at cornerback, were good moves for the Packers. It needed to happen, and it gives them some more flexibility going into the draft. I mean, yeah, they're not Josh Jacobs or Professor X, but it's definitely a positive.
Well, and you may know about Nate Hobbs today that they plan to play him on the outside, even though he's been a slot corner. But the reality is he's going to play both because Hafley's looks look different depending on down and distance, and he's also the number 1 cheerleader of the Rich Bisaccia fan club. Rich was a father figure to him. I'm sure you've heard it. I know Packer Universe has heard it. This guy will run through a wall for Rich Bisaccia. So hopefully they get every ounce of his energy, joining his battery mate, Keyshawn Nixon, who he did play with 1 year in Las Vegas. And obviously he knows his guy, Josh Jacobs, on the other side of the football. So I look forward to seeing what, based on, some of the tape I saw, he's certainly an exciting guy that can lend a lot of extra depth to that room.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe that's why they kept Rich Bisaccia around. Yeah, he might come in handy, like play that card at the last minute. Free agent. Hey, we got your guy here in Green Bay. Why don't you come?
Hey, I guess he's a player's guy. That means you can suck at special teams. I don't know. I don't know where that levels out, Tay, or water finds his level, as Rob would say. Not quite sure, but on this one, we'll let it go.
All right, let's move on to Packers that left. Obviously, we mentioned some of them already. Eric Stokes went to the Raiders. Josh Myers went to the Jets. A.J. Dillon just
Quadzilla
today. Quadzilla
left the building.
He has left the building for the East Coast. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles. This was just off the news earlier. I think either earlier today that he was cleared. His health was cleared, so he was able to do.
Yeah, yesterday afternoon. Yeah, yesterday afternoon.
He's he was given a clean bill of health, which is great news for AJ. But we were pretty sure 99% that he wasn't going to come back to the Packers since their running back room is
very full.
Very full. Even with the Marshawn Lloyd injury, he's coming back. So
still one of my favorite draft picks from last year, Tay.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see some action there. But obviously AJ was on the way out. Mr. DC, hopefully he's back around, and he could be the Packers ambassador still in Door County. But who knows what he'll do? Maybe he'll relocate his family to Philly and spend the rest of his days on the East Coast. But that's where AJ went. Thank you, AJ, for being the running back you were, being the Quadzilla. We loved it while you were here, but good luck out in Philly.
We had Turdell Slayton. That'd be one. TJ Slayton,
TJ.
Off to Cincinnati, where defensive players go to die, as we know. That's another one that was not mentioned. Also to mention, speaking of other Packer moves in the last week, as we talked about weeks and weeks and weeks ago, the IRFAs, those are those exclusive rights free agents. Essentially, you just have to offer them, they have to accept it, or they can retire if they choose to. That's really their choice. But basically, every IRFA that we knew would be back in Green Bay was extended or tendered. That right from Bo Melton, Aaron Mosby, Emmanuel Wilson, Danny Whelan, Kadeem Telford, and Zane Anderson. So all those guys. I think one of those fringe tight end guys did not get the tender, and that would be that. But that's kind of where we sit today. Not a lot of movement in my mind expected. I know the draft, the 2025 NFL draft here in Northeast Wisconsin, is loaded, Tay, with interior defensive linemen. So you can certainly look for, that loss of TJ Slayton to be replaced. And it may be, Tay, that first pick in the draft by the Green Bay Packers is an interior defensive lineman. There's some great guys in there. We'll talk more over the coming weeks, but there's a lot of hay to be made there. And, we're going to talk about what blows in the north here in a minute, but the trenches are where games are won and lost. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the current Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, but that offense and defensive line there is why, a big reason why, two reasons why they won the Super Bowl. So.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And it remains to be seen what else and who else the Packers get in free agency here. I think all the flash and the splashes are done, but we'll hopefully see something. But people hang their hat on possibilities, Ren, and one of those possibilities is still potentially trading for Trey Hendrickson. He's a defensive end in Cincinnati that is rumored to be wanting out, and they could trade for him. So now, after all the, Khalil Mack gets signed, Max Crosby gets signed, Myles Garrett gets signed, it's like, okay, who's left that we really want and probably not going to get? And that is Trey Hendrickson. So that would be great. I love it, but probably not happening either. But you can hope, and edge help, right? That's what we kind of went into this free agency looking for and wanting, that and a wide receiver. We haven't got either one of them. So I think people are looking at that going, okay, like, let's make that happen. Yeah. And then they're going to get disappointed. So
Cooper Kupp any minute now, Tay. It's going to happen. I told you.
Did he go somewhere, though?
It's not my cup of tea, but, the most receptions over the last 4 years in the NFL is Cooper Kupp. But
and there are a list of guys like that, like older veteran guys that he could pick up, but
I think Coop could be in that Devontae vein where do they need a bucket getter on third down? If he's healthy, could he produce that kind of thing you might need? Now he's not the downfield talent that they need, and that's probably going to happen in the draft. They're going to look to a guy like that. Will that guy come in and pack the roster in 2025? Probably not. But Cooper Kupp, if it happens, don't color me shocked, Tay, because that'll be exactly what I said 2 weeks ago. Don't give me a washed Cooper Kupp. I can see it happening.
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson, though, your point there, the Bengals, it sounds like behind the scenes still want a lot of capital. The team most closely rumored at this point, who are doing great work in the offseason, by the way, are the Washington Commanders. They are the team closest tied to potentially trying to get him over there. And, hey, from bringing in Laramie Tunsil in a great trade piece, I mean, we're talking – when you talk great offensive linemen, I don't know what the Texans are doing, like literally selling off pieces from their offensive line not to protect their quarterback. It's insane. But the Commanders are saying, hey, we've got a window here with this young, affordable, cheap rookie quarterback contract, and we're going to do everything in our damn power to fight for a championship now when it's cheap, and good on them. And I wouldn't say it's much different 3 hours to our south.
Yeah.
So if you want to blow in the north today, I'm happy to talk about those Chicago Bears.
Sure. Around the north, there's a few things. I wrote down a couple things before we started recording, but yeah, let's start with the Bears. What do you got?
The Bears, Tay, I mean, they started their offseason weeks before this thing even started. I mean, they go ahead and through trades, they acquire Joe Thuney from the Kansas City Chiefs, 3-time Super Bowl champions over the last number of years, and offensive lineman Jonah Jackson for the Rams, who was only in LA 1 year, was with the Detroit Lions, i.e. Ben Johnson. And then here in free agency, they go get Drew Dahlman, the best center on the market. They paid 3 years, $42 million for that guy. They go get your guy, defensive end, Dayo Odeyingbo. Did I do that one right? 3 years, 48. Also, only 26 has his ceiling. And then they bring in, an enemy now moving forward to the Green Bay Packers, former Atlanta Falcon Grady Jarrett, caught on the hot mic talking smack to Jordan Love when the Falcons and Packers played in recent years. And they're ready to get after it, man. I will say, for so many years, the Bears seem to do so many quizzical, just, almost like grade school things being in the NFL. They seem to be like a minor league team, how bad they made decisions. But, they saw deficiencies, and that line sucks today in Chicago. And they've remade it right there with those 3 moves. And they're going to, I would guess, in the first, second round of this draft, they're going to take another offensive lineman, and they're putting their money where their mouth is, just like the Commanders are doing. We've got a young, probably their best quarterback prospect in all the time we've been alive, closing in on our late 40s here, Tay. They have a window, and they're going to do it. Now, is Ben Johnson, the end-all, be-all head coach? We're going to find out. We don't know that. Some guys, like Kevin O'Connell, come in, and they do an excellent job as play callers and head coaches. We'll see what Ben brings to the table. The Bears have a long history of somehow looking like they won the offseason and still being the Chicago Bears. We'll have a show in the short term with our friend Joey Christopoulos, and we'll get to ask him how much they won this offseason with their moves. But I will say today, I was and have been very impressed with, the urgency in the moves the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles finally is making with regard of, hey, if we want to compete, we have to do it in the trenches, and we are addressing it. We're addressing it right now, and we're addressing it in numbers. So much so, you have guys like our unfriend of the Packers. He hates Green Bay, the wide receiver from the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, going, where the hell are the Bears getting all this money? I don't understand how they can keep buying and bringing all these things in. I mean, that's how big of a talking point it is. But I will say, on paper, Tay, we make a lot of fun of the Chicago Bears and their fans, and it's been a great time doing it for over 30 years because they've sucked so bad. But I think the arrow is pointed definitely in the right direction for them.
We'll see. Again, with them, it's always, I'll believe it when I see it. They're off-season heroes, off-season champs. So you got to prove it. So they're doing what they should be doing. We'll just see if it translates. But let's go up a little north there to Minnesota. Sam Darnold basically gets not signed. He's like, we're done with you. He gets shoved off and shipped off to the Seahawks for a deal, whatever that is. Clearly, they didn't want to roll with that. They're either going to roll with their J.J. McCarthy rookie last year who was injured very early and never saw the field. They're either going to go with that, or they're going to pick up yours truly, your favorite, Mr. Aaron Charles Rodgers, who's rumored to maybe go to the Vikings, who's given the blessing
who is pushing that? Who is pushing that narrative today?
Yeah, Brett Lorenzo Favre.
Yeah.
He's the one like, I would tell him to go to to walk in your footsteps. I mean, those two are two peas in the pod, right? They're turning out to be, but I
don't think Aaron has that kind of angry blood in him like Brett does and still has.
No.
So Brett, you're really we're still working my nerve, and you know what? I'll never forget you, Brent, is back in my mind. Those shirts, I don't know what I do with my I'll never forget you, Brent shirt. when he went to the Vikings, but I wish I could pull that out and have it on for today's show because this guy needs to shut the F up, Tay, and just go back to his tractor and stop talking on Fox News about stupid ass stuff like this. It's just really burning my grill, man. Like, if Aaron goes there, and I mean, the one point he's right. He listen, Aaron's not as, I think, as vindictive, with his thoughts and desires that Brett was. He wanted to burn the Packers down.
Yeah.
But he is right in the sense that team is loaded. And if you're Aaron and you have a chance, and you and I just talked about that last week, if you go to a team like the Giants or the Raiders, what's the point? Yeah. And we know since then things transpired, and the Raiders went and when they go get Geno, and apparently that's good enough for them. That's brutal.
Yeah, a lot of. That could have started the whole QB circus.
Yep, but I do think, I mean, if Aaron's weighing, the Steelers and the Giants, and the Vikings jump into the fray, because they initially said, we're not interested at all. That is not us. Every other quarterback has left the Vikings. They're all gone. Daniel Jones is gone as a backup. Yeah. You see Darnold go out to Seattle. He's gone. And are you going to roll with a guy who came off a pretty serious injury in a rookie in J.J. McCarthy and say that works? That's a huge question mark, Tay. They do have a talented roster, and they bolstered it. Speaking of the trenches, they bring in Javon Hargrave. He did have a torn triceps last year, but he did actually come back from it too. He's 32 years old. Jonathan Allen, he also had a pectoral injury in 2024. He's 30 years old. But they're two great guys to insert in the center of your defense. Good moves by them. They bring back Byron Murphy. That was their prized free agent, and they got him back. He's only 25 years old. I think they overpaid for the re-signing of Aaron Jones, that 2-year deal, $13 million guaranteed for Aaron Jones the next 2 years. I see that being a 1-year deal, Tay. I don't think Aaron Jones, is in Minnesota after next year. I think the wheel is going to come off. We love Aaron, but maybe he can write his, Minnesota skull narrative and just retire as a Viking. I don't know, but I think Aaron Rodgers, if he's weighing the Steelers versus the Vikings, if the Vikings were to come in with a solid offer and comparable to the Steelers, he should go there.
And I think it.
I welcome it, Tay, with open arms. I do.
We'll see, but I actually think it might happen, and we're living in this world where the same thing happened. Just nuts. Crazy.
Did we eat the blue pill or the red pill, Tay?
Yeah, I don't know. It's
not
turns
sure.
out it's a purple pill, Ren. You mix them together, and you can't choke that one up.
Very nice.
I'm looking at the feed here. Their safety, the Vikings safety Harrison Smith, agreed to terms, so he's back for his 14th season. So they're bringing.
I was going to say, is Harrison Smith older than us?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What do you got for the Lions? What have the Lions done?
Well, the Detroit Lions haven't done a ton, but the one thing they did do, they lose Carlton Davis. He had a great year. They brought him over from Tampa. Goes to New England. We know New England Patriots going into free agency had $127 million to spend. So they went and had a spendthrift. They not spendthrift, but spend spree, and they went nuts in free agency. And they got a lot of players to help Vrabel out over there. We're not going to get into all that. I could care less what happens to the Patriots. They're not going to be good for years, but we'll see. But they go and do that, and they bring in, the number 1 rated cornerback on the market, DJ Reed. He was one of those probably top 5, top 10 free agents that were going to be available this year. So they lose one guy, and they might have brought in an even better piece, which is interesting. Now, that said, he played with Sauce Gardner, so who's to say what there when he was in New York, but heck of a player. So they didn't get any worse there. They might have gotten better. They re-signed linebackers Derek Barnes and Ezekiel Turner. They did release our guy Z Smith, who's once again going to be on his fourth team in 3 years. Shocker. I would say one of the things that might not seem like a big deal, around the league, but longtime guard Kevin Zeitler left the Titans. He's 35 years old, but been a just main stalwart on that line in Detroit. So I think overall the North generally is stacked today. I think the Lions got a little weaker with regard to mostly the offseason losses of their offense and defensive coordinator. But they're going to still be a heck of a team, and I would say they're the front runner in the North at the moment. I think the Bears did the best work in the offseason thus far to take that 5-12 team and potentially put them in the mix. And I don't know. I mean, I think the Packers 2025 season at this moment, if you ask me, really hinges on the play of Jordan Love. If Love has a 2024 kind of season next year in 25, I think the Packers are back to kind of that 9-8 clawing for a spot kind of piece. And in a division like that, we haven't even got to, the release leak of the schedules coming out in early May. The Packers have a tough schedule. We know that. We know who the opponents are, just not where they are, where and when. They've got a really tough go. So at this moment, I can't say I feel super confident. I think the Vikings, depending on what they do at the quarterback position, are going to be, the fourth best team in the NFL in the NFC North, which is the worst team in the NFC North. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I just don't think inserting a rookie like J.J. McCarthy, if that's what they indeed decide to do, is going to be the best choice coming off a very serious injury, never having played in an NFL regular season game.
But that's what we want. We want that.
Oh,
we want
of
we
course.
Want him to come in and
honestly, Tay, if Aaron Rodgers goes there, he's going to have a good year. But I also want Aaron Rodgers there because I think you can pick him off. I think he's a statue. I don't think it'll be to the positive that some people do. So I welcome it with open arms.
I still think the NFC North is a division to be really good next year. I'm looking at the Lions Twitter page and their banner says 2024 North Division champions. It's the best they got, Ren. It's the best they got.
They couldn't even get to the NFC Championship game. They got blown out at home by the Commanders, Day. You remember that game?
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Ugh. So I just thought I'd share that revelation. I was like, okay, guys, yeah. But, we'll see. I agree with you with their coaching staff. That's definitely a detriment to their potential success this year. And the Vikings are a wild card. Bears are getting better, but you got to prove it. And even if the Vikings do pick up Aaron Rodgers or something, they still got to prove it too. They get to the playoffs and they fall apart. They get to the end of the season really well, and then they fall apart. So we'll see.
Yep, they've got. I mean, that offensive roster is massively talented. And again, I think the two additions on the D line were great. I'd love to have both those guys on my D line, but it is what it is, and it's a very, very competitive division. It's probably the most competitive division in the NFL right now, and
that's awesome. That's great.
I don't think the Packers got a heck of a lot better with the two guys that brought in. I don't think they got worse, but I wouldn't sit here today and tell you, hey, I feel so much better about the prospects. I don't.
Yep, I totally agree with you. That's 100% accurate. Hopefully that changes for the better coming up.
Hey, and suddenly we find, Trey Hendrickson, and we'll all be winners of the offseason. The Bears can, go take that, go hand the trophy back over to us for the 2025 offseason winners. So, again, we'll have a lot of fun with Joey. I look forward to hearing his, glass pouring over, half full with all that exuberant. I've seen Bears fans putting together videos, like old school Bear dance videos. just about what they've
So
done in the
premature.
last few weeks.
So premature.
It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. I love it. I love their over exuberance and their knowledge of just how crappy they've been. That any of this stuff makes them so excited, and that's great. We all want to be excited, and I love that they're our rival, and we get to talk the most smack with that football team. So.
Well, let's wind down here, Ren. I just want to mention that the Packers did offer and present a press conference for our one and only Mason Crosby, number 2. The day after he retired as a Packer, they kept him in town and they gave him a press conference. So
Stop.
What?
You said, will he get a statue? Nope. Will he get a number hung up? Nope. Will he even get a press conference? Probably not.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
So,
are you eating some crow?
What I'm trying to do here is say, Packers, thank you for doing that to him. This is what we needed for him to be sent off correctly. And I get it, like he just wasn't on the team that year in 2020 after 2023. So it's like, okay. And then he signed somewhere else, and so he was still available. He was still playing football, and then he decided to retire, and then you bring him back. So all in all, they did him right. They done him right, and that was deserved for him and for us to send him off. Packers lead scorer of all time. He was here for 16 years. I mean, you got to give that guy, someone like that, the proper farewell, and they did. So thank you, Packers. Thank you, Mason. And that's all I wanted to say is yes, that's what I wanted. We got what we wanted.
He was the longest tenured non-quarterback in Packer history.
Yep, that's something. So
yep.
I just want to bring it up.
Forever Tay, 3/7/25, Mason Crosby Day. They had him in the Hudson Center kicking, beach balls and other crap. He was having a good old time. I don't know if you saw the videos, Tay. I hope you did.
I didn't see that, no, but I saw all the other stuff. And I was
watching the press conference. You got to get on. That's your man, Mason, Tay. A little disappointed.
Yeah. All right, Ren. You dodged and didn't answer my Jair question, so we'll save that for a later date. Maybe we'll have more information next week if Jair is around. We'll see. But that is definitely a topic for next time. We're running a little late here, so you got anything else to say to the fine folks out there in the Packer universe land?
I don't say, other than, hang in there, Packer universe. It's maybe a little ho-hum this year when it comes to legal tampering and NFL free agency, but we take it a day at a time. So until episode 308 on the pup list.